Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about Miss Congeniality.
This is such a good movie. I hadn't seen it in so long.
It has been so long since I've seen it, but one of my favorites, for sure. Still holds up.
Totally. The logline for this movie is, when a terrorist threatens to bomb the Miss United States pageant, the FBI rushes to find a female agent to go undercover as a contestant. Unfortunately, Gracie is the only female FBI agent who can, quote, look the part. Despite her complete lack of refinement and femininity, she prides herself in being just one of the boys and is horrified at the idea of becoming a girly girl.
This movie has an interesting concept.
It's really specific.
Yeah.
Especially for these early 2000s movies where the plot is usually relatively straightforward. This one is intricate. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, agree. I think it's just so good, though. Sandra Bullock is so good in this role. It's still funny to this day. Like, I was giggling and just having a good time.
Yeah, it is hilarious. The humor of this movie absolutely holds up.
Mm-hmm. So this movie came out in 2000, and I have the most random fun fact about this. Ellen DeGeneres says this was based on her.
Sorry. How? How could it possibly be based on Ellen?
Cue us being Dakota Johnson across from Ellen.
Yes.
Being like, really, Ellen?
No, it isn't.
She said, Miss Congeniality is based on me. When I was getting ready to co-host the Emmys, the writer saw me on TV learning how to walk in a dress and heels. My stylist at the time, a man, was teaching me, and it was hilarious. The Miss Congeniality writer saw it and thought it was brilliant.
Is this true?
I don't know. But the director came out and said, I didn't know about that.
No, okay, so absolutely false.
But it's so funny to me. Like, I feel like the public opinion on Ellen DeGeneres has changed a lot in the past few years. And in the past, I would have just seen this quote and been like, haha, that's funny. But now I'm like, okay, Ellen.
I know, same. It's a totally different feeling. And like, I could see there being one tiny kernel of truth in this, like maybe a scene. Like maybe the writer saw a scene of Ellen trying to walk in heels and was like, oh, that's hilarious. That's a good inspiration for this one scene. But for her to come out and be like, Miss Congeniality is me. I can't.
It's the best, though. I mean, props to her if it is.
Sure. Sorry, I'm just imagining, like, in the credits, if like, inspired by a true story. Okay.
Well, let's talk about the real Miss Congeniality. Sandra Bullock, who plays Gracie Hart.
I'm obsessed with her. I love her.
I haven't seen her in a long time, I feel like. She was in so many movies around this time.
Mm-hmm.
But not lately.
No, that's so true. But I loved her in The Proposal. That might be my favorite thing that she's in, her and Ryan Reynolds. I'm obsessed with that movie. And I also loved her in The Lost City, which is more recent.
You're right. I've seen that one.
Okay, yeah. That's the one with Channing Tatum. I think we might have recommended that one for one of our February reviews. So would recommend you guys check that one out.
I totally lied. She has been in something recent because that was like 2021 or something.
I know she was also in Bird Box, which got a lot of attention at the time. I think that was during the pandemic. I never saw that because I heard it was scary.
I think I saw it and it was scary, but I can't remember now.
Blocked it out. She's also in The Blind Side, Ocean's 8, which I loved Ocean's 8.
Yes.
And so many more things.
Everyone knows Sandra Bullock.
Mm-hmm.
The Lake House. I love The Lake House. Have you seen that movie?
Mm-mm.
That's one that might be good for the pod.
Okay.
You guys let Megan know if she should watch it.
Yeah, let me know. So she got her start in theater, which I love. She actually went to East Carolina University and then moved to New York, where she took acting classes and was in an off-Broadway play. And that off-Broadway play is what started getting attention for her. And that eventually led to her first movie role in Hangmen.
Oh, interesting. Can she sing?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I only saw information about her being in plays.
Okay.
Not necessarily musicals, but I'm not sure. And I know that in real life, she's good friends with Jason Bateman and his wife, which I think is very cute. And I believe all of her friends call her Sandy.
Okay.
Which is cute.
I do not see her as a Sandy, but yeah, It is cute.
No, I don't either. And then I also know that she's adopted 2 kids named Louis, which I don't know if she says it Louis or Louis, and Layla.
Cute.
Which kind of reminds me of, we were just talking about Diane Keaton and how she adopted 2 children on her own. I believe it's a similar story for Sandra Bullock, but she also has had long-term partners, so she might have done it with them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel like I remember this, though.
And she was married to Jesse James from 2005 to 2010, but then was with her longtime partner, Brian Randall, since 2015. And they actually met when he photographed her son's birthday party.
Oh,
That was really cute. But he tragically passed away from ALS in August of 2023.
That was so recent.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
that's
Really sad.
That's really, really sad. I hate that for her. And then we have Benjamin Bratt, who plays Eric.
And he plays Detective Ray Curtis in Law and Order, which I believe is where I recognize him from. But he's actually in a ton of stuff. And this kind of surprised me. He does a lot of voice acting.
Oh.
So he actually played a character in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, Despicable Me 2, and he was Ernesto in Coco.
Oh, wow.
Which is like the bigger skeleton guitar player guy.
Uh-huh. Wow.
I know.
I had no idea. I was like, where has this guy been? Has he still been doing stuff? But yeah, I guess so.
And this was fun. I didn't realize this, but he dated Julia Roberts from 1998 to 2001 before they both ended up getting married to other people in 2002.
Oh, wow.
So it was like the one before the one for both of them.
Do you know how this lines up with Julia Roberts and Matthew Perry?
I don't know, actually.
I don't think they ever officially dated, or they did date, but then they've been friends. Well, they were friends forever, but I'm so curious what the timeline was, if it was prior to 1998 when she started dating him.
Just the first thing that comes up does say that was her ex-boyfriend, and they briefly dated in the 90s. So I guess it must have been before.
Okay, so Matthew Perry first, then Benjamin Bratt.
And then Julia Roberts married Lyle Lovett, but they were only married for a couple of years. And then in 2002, she got remarried to Daniel Moder.
Okay.
And I don't know who either of those people are.
We need to do a Julia Roberts movie so we can deep dive on her, because I would love to talk about Julia Roberts.
Me too. Something that is interesting about their relationship, though, is that in all the articles I read, it was like very noted that the two of them were very private and there were not a lot of photos of them together.
I guess that explains why we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
2 other famous people auditioned for the role of Eric, Hugh Jackman and Matt Dillon.
I could see Hugh Jackman. I could see either of them.
Yeah.
And then we have Candice Bergen, or Bergen. I'm not sure which way to say her last name. She plays Kathy Morningside, the co-director of the pageant in the movie. And I thought this was wild. I found out upon researching her that her dad was a famous ventriloquist.
Oh.
And her mom was a model.
I love when you find out the weirdest facts about people's parents.
I know.
Like Tom Tom in 13 Going on 30. We've got some really good parent facts here.
I know. Candice was also in Sweet Home Alabama. She plays Patrick Dempsey's mom, which is like a semi-big character. And she's also in Book Club and Bride Wars, among a bunch of other things. You guys will definitely recognize her.
And then we have Michael Caine, who plays Victor.
He's best known as Alfred in the Dark Knight movies, like all of that series of Batman movies. And he's also Arthur in the Kingsman movies. So he's very good at this just posh butler role, which I kind of love. But he's also been working since the 60s. And so he's in a ton of things. But those are the 2 things that I think you guys might recognize him from. That's what I recognize him from. And he's still working, even though he's 90. He just had a project come out in 2023.
Wow. Good for him.
King.
Yeah, he's so good in this role. Wow, I can't believe he's 90. And then we have Ernie Hudson, who plays McDonald, who, if you haven't seen the movie in a long time, he's the chief of their FBI unit. And he is Winston in Ghostbusters. And he's going to be in the new one that's coming out this year. So they're bringing him back.
I actually love Ghostbusters, and I love the new ones. I don't care what anyone says. I love McKenna Grace. And Finn Wolfhard, I think is his name, from Stranger Things, who's in those movies.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's also Jacob in Grace and Frankie, which if you guys watch that show, he is a relatively bigger character. I think maybe season 2 is where he comes in.
Awesome. That show is on my list. Everyone says it's so good.
You will love it. I fell off because there's so many seasons now, but the first couple seasons are so good, especially the first season is hilarious.
That makes me happy. And then we have Heather Burns, who plays Cheryl, or Miss Rhode Island.
And she's also in You've Got Mail. She's the girl that works in Meg Ryan's bookstore. You guys, if you can remember the younger woman that has the braids that works in the bookstore, that's her. And she's also Meryl in 2 Weeks' Notice and Nina in Bewitched.
She's so cute. I love her in this movie.
Me too.
I have a random fun fact about another cast member who actually didn't make the cut for the movie. It's Edward Herrmann, who, if you guys are Gilmore Girls fans, that's Richard, the grandfather. He plays Sandra Bullock's dad in this movie, but his scene actually got cut. But you can actually still see the scene in the official trailer. They didn't cut it for some reason in the trailer. And you can watch the full deleted scene on YouTube. But the scene that got deleted is they're at his wedding, and he asks Gracie, played by Sandra Bullock, "Honey, are you a lesbian?" And she says, "I wish." And it's not said in like a mean way or anything. He just truly is genuinely asking, and he's super supportive. And then they just move on with their lives. And I just thought it was so cute and funny.
I love the response, "I wish." It's iconic.
She like snort laughs before she says it. But I wish Edward Herrmann was in this movie.
I know. I like him too. Okay, should we get into the movie?
Yes. The movie starts in New Jersey in 1982. And we see this little girl with glasses reading a book on the playground while other kids are playing. There's this little boy who's getting beat up, and she comes over to defend him, and the bully tries to punch her, and she ducks and then kicks him and knocks him over. It's the best. And then she's trying to tell the kid afterwards that she likes him, and he actually gets mad because he says, "Everyone will think I need a girl to fight for me." So then she punches him in the face.
Iconic from the start.
I love her.
And then we see that same girl all grown up, and she's sitting in a dark bar, and she's holding up this book that has this like hidden spy camera in it. And it kind of zooms out, and we can see that she's part of a bigger police initiative that's happening right now, where there's a van of FBI agents sitting outside watching the footage through her secret camera. And then the agents bust in the door, and the guy they're trying to arrest starts choking on a peanut. So Agent Gracie Hart, who is the woman we've been talking about, played by Sandra Bullock, gives him the Heimlich, which is actually against direct orders from the captain. And when she's doing it, he grabs a knife and like holds it to her neck, like holding her hostage to make all the rest of the police officers drop their weapons. And a bunch of them get away. And another agent, one of Gracie's coworkers in her squad, I guess it would be a squad, gets shot in the fight. But he doesn't get killed, but definitely still injured, has to go to the hospital.
And right afterwards, we meet this other agent, Eric Matthews, and he's played by Benjamin Bratt. And he tells her that even though she made the wrong choice, it's over. Kind of saying, like, get over it, but not in a mean way. He's trying to be comforting. And then he tells her, "By the way, you look like hell." And I just feel like that's a good introduction to their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So Hart goes home and heats up her frozen dinner. And we can tell she's pretty athletic. She trips a few times because she's very clumsy. And then she kicks the bed, and then she just starts taking her anger and frustration out on the punching bag that's just randomly in her living room.
And then we cut to a scene of a gloved figure writing a serial killer note, what looks like a serial killer note, because it's like formatted weird and there's parts missing. And it's this threat that's signed by the quote citizen, is like what this criminal is called, or is calling themselves. And then we go back to Gracie Hart. It's presumably the next morning, and she gets a call from work and says she's on it, and no, she doesn't need assistance. So we're like, ooh, what is she gonna go do? And then she puts her siren on and speeds off to this busy Starbucks where she cuts the line because she's on official business and is like showing everyone her FBI badge. And then when she gets to the front of the line, she orders 8 coffees and everyone just like groans at the same time. It's really funny.
I loved that part. That was so funny. At work, all of the FBI agents look at the creepy note from the citizen. And what we learn about this person is they always send a cryptic note before they strike a target, and they never do it the same way twice. Hart asks to be put on the case, but her boss tells her she's stuck on paperwork duty for her behavior the night before because she got that officer shot. And after work, she's eating very sloppily at a bar. I think that's a theme throughout this movie is she's just like eating and it's messy and she talks with her mouth open and smacks her food and all of that. My family's worst nightmare. And she's looking at the note anyway because she's very fascinated by this case. And at the bar, her coworker, Eric, who's leading the case, is on a date with a law student who says she'd love Gracie's female perspective on her work. And Eric makes a joke about her not being a real girl. But meanwhile, Gracie can hold her own because under her breath, she's making fun of this girl, like saying, when the bartender is like, "What'll you get?" She says under her breath, "Milk."
Yeah, you can tell Gracie like hates her because she is like very girly. Is the vibe I got. So Gracie finds out that the letter is somehow connected to the Miss United States pageant and tells Eric, but Eric says that intelligence actually already figured that out. And then Gracie lurks in the back of their meeting, but she keeps chiming in and ends up basically leading the planning session. She's like, "What if you did this?" And then Eric is like, "Yeah, what if we did that?" It's like how the whole thing goes. And ultimately, they decide they need to send someone undercover to the pageant. And so they use one of the agent's daughter's dress-up software to dress up female agents on their computer to see what they would look like in a pageant dress. And this is where we hear Gracie snort laugh for the first time, which is hilarious. It's like also very kind of gross that they're doing
so
this.
Gross.
It's like very like objectifying and like sexualizing. I kind of hate it.
So misogynistic, yes.
Yeah. They do Gracie last, but she looks incredible. And they're all like surprised that she looks great, which this to me is like a flaw in the movie because I'm like, Sandra Bullock is perfect.
Yeah.
So then Eric asks her to do it, like if she'll actually go to the pageant and be undercover. But she's so against looking like a bimbo, is what she says. And she and Eric like grapple and kind of have an argument while he tries to convince her to do it. And finally, she does agree.
I love that scene. I feel like it's so iconic because they're like wrestling on the ground and like doing flips and hurting each other.
Yeah. And she's very much holding her own.
Oh, totally. And he does not care about hitting a girl. Like he's going at her too. And yeah, they're just fighting about whether or not she'll do it. And I love that scene. I totally forgot about it, but it's ingrained in my brain now. So then, because she agrees, they meet with the woman that leads the pageant, Kathy Morningside, played by Candice Bergen, and Stan Fields, played by William Shatner. And they ask her to allow their agent to get into the top 5 at the beauty pageant so they'll have access to all the areas of the stage. And Kathy and Stan literally laugh out loud when they realize that they want Gracie Hart to be the agent. And they connect her to a pageant consultant, Victor Melling, who can coach Hart because she's gonna need to show some kind of ability to actually legitimately make it into the top 5, even though it's gonna be fixed. And at one point, Gracie calls it a beauty pageant, and Kathy says, "It's not a beauty pageant, it's a scholarship program," which comes back later.
And so then Gracie Hart goes to lunch with Victor, the pageant coach, and he critiques her the entire time for her lack of manners and her sloppy eating and the way that she walks.
Yeah, he's so mean to her.
Mm-hmm.
There's also this awkward situation here that I'm like, maybe this didn't age really well. Eric is supposed to have lunch with them too, and then Victor seems to take a liking to Eric, and Eric feels uncomfortable by that, and he's just makes up that he has something to do, and he leaves the lunch so that it's just Victor and Gracie. And this kind of comes back later. Like, Victor will always kind of hit on Eric, and Eric is homophobic. But then you could also spin it and be like, he's just uncomfortable that he's getting hit on by someone. But I don't know.
I think it's sort of both. I think they're using the like predatory stereotype of gay people with Victor to like try to make a joke about Victor hitting on this like straight FBI agent. But then also, yes, it is also homophobic. I think that Eric is like trying to avoid him.
Yeah. So that didn't age great.
Yeah. And so while they're at lunch and afterwards, Victor talks about his past and how he used to be the most sought after pageant consultant. But then one girl that he trained said that he was a crazed perfectionist who harangued her to within an inch of her sanity. And now nobody wants to work with him. So that's why he's still available to work with Gracie. And while he's talking, Gracie makes her wine glass like make a noise by running her finger around the edge. And that is important because that will come back later.
And then we're on the plane to the pageant, and Victor is showing Gracie videos of old pageant winners, and she's just making fun of them the whole time, and she's imitating them, and he gets up and he tells the other agents on the plane that he has zero faith she'll be able to pull this off.
But then it's time for her makeover. I know that makeovers are like, I was going to say like old fashioned because like we hate the narrative that like they need to be made over to be able to do anything, but I love a makeover scene. I don't care.
A 2000s makeover scene is, we remember all of them. They're iconic.
Nothing is better. And so they clean her teeth, give her a wax, force her to eat celery. They do her eyebrows, they give her a tan, they do her hair, they do everything. It's amazing.
And I love that they're doing it in the most militaristic way.
Yeah.
Like they're still at the airport.
Yeah, it's like in this airplane hangar. It's like very gray and concrete and sterile. It's weird. But then the whole team walks out of the airplane hangar and it's the reveal where Gracie walks out behind them and she's in this very cute purple mini dress and heels. And even Miss Morningside, the woman who runs the pageant, says she looks perfect.
Eric, who is a womanizer, we pretty much know by this point just because of the way he acts, he's taken aback by how she looks and he goes, "Heart, is that you?" And she says, "I am in a dress, I have gel in my hair, I haven't slept all night, I'm starved, and I'm armed. Don't mess with me." And then she trips.
It's amazing.
I love that line. And then she's on the bus with all of the other girls on the way to the pageant, and she sits next to Miss Rhode Island, who is actually really, really nice to her. And all the girls start singing the Miss United States song, and you can tell that Gracie wants to die in this moment.
Yeah, that's her worst case scenario.
Absolutely. And at lunch, Miss Rhode Island, aka Cheryl, introduces Gracie to everyone, and now she's going by Gracie Lou Freebush, Miss New Jersey.
We also see that Gracie is wearing a camera. So while she's meeting everyone, the guys are like watching the video feed and they're making gross comments about all the girls and like what Gracie is eating. I hate it.
As much as I said this movie holds up and it ages well and the jokes are good, these are the parts that are not good.
Yeah, I love that we were like, totally holds up, love it.
And now we're like,
whole time.
We hate it. Red flags everywhere.
No, it is a really good movie, and overall it is hilarious. There are just a few things, and I'm like, ugh, I cannot believe that flew. Like that was okay. And so while the girls are having lunch, one of the co-directors, Stan, announces his retirement from the pageant, and Gracie overhears some of the girls talking, saying that he's actually getting fired because they want to hire someone younger. And while all this is happening, the agents are trying to get their audio to reconnect to Gracie, and when they do, it like screeches in her ear. You guys know the sound, like the horrible microphone sound. And she yells, "Jesus Christ," while he's giving this like intense announcement. And the room goes silent. And she like thinks on her feet and says, "I had a bite of my bagel and I forgot to pray." And then she gets on her knees in the middle of the room and prays. And a bunch of the girls join her.
I love that they all join her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, totally normal."
I know. And then one night, Cheryl comes to Gracie's hotel room with hot chocolate, and they have a hangout night. And she says it's her famous hot chocolate, but none of the girls wanted it, even though it's fat-free. And Gracie tries it, and she spits it out because it tastes disgusting. And they talk about what they'll do for the talent part of the competition, and Gracie says that hers is a surprise, and we can tell she doesn't know what her talent is yet. And she's like, "But it's nothing embarrassing like baton twirling." And Cheryl's talent is baton twirling.
Disaster.
And so her face just falls and Gracie apologizes to her immediately. And Cheryl talks about seeing a girl once who lit her batons on fire and wishes she could do something like that, but her parents wouldn't want her to.
This and then something that happens at the very end really made me realize how young a lot of these girls are. I think most of them are in college. Because there's, I think, a comment later when they're like in the pageant and you know how they always ask somebody a question. I think a couple of them mention being like doing things on their campus.
You're right.
So that made me go, aha, yes. Because at first I was like, weird that she's saying her parents wouldn't let her, but she's an adult because Gracie is an adult. Gracie has a full career, but it's because they're very young.
That makes sense.
And then in the middle of the night, Eric comes to Gracie's room to get her so that she can practice with Vic. And Vic is furious because Gracie hasn't come up with a talent. And I don't think he thought that he was going to have to come up with one for her. But then she's like, "Oh, no, don't worry. I can do something that I used to be good at in high school."
Terrifying. A terrifying statement from her. And then we see a suspicious van pull up to an empty area where someone gets out with this female mannequin and attaches an explosive to her head. And then they set the explosive off and the mannequin blows up. So we immediately know what the plan is right here.
Mm-hmm. And then we see Gracie and Eric have this really cute convo. I think he's dropping her back off at her hotel room maybe, or I don't remember where they were. But Gracie says, "I know you think I'm gorgeous." And she like has this whole song that she sings. It's really cute because she's teasing him for liking her. And there's so much tension between them. It like, this is where it clicks for me watching them. It's really cute. And then it looks like Eric is actually going to kiss her, but then he takes a huge bite out of his candy bar. So he's like leaning in and then whips out a candy bar and chomps off a bite.
I love that. I think to this day, the quotes that I repeatedly say from this movie are the sing-song voice for whatever I want to say. Like, you think something. Like, I'll just like make that up. And then the Miss United States song.
Oh, yeah. The Miss United States song has been stuck in my head since we watched this.
And I'm always like, she's beauty. She's grace. She's Miss United States.
Yeah.
So the next day, the girls ask Gracie about the guy that came to her room. And she says they used to date. And she trashes him in front of the girls. And of course, Eric and the other agents can hear because she's all mic'd up. And you can tell it kind of bothers him to hear her trash him. But I do think what she says is so funny. She says, I dated him for a little while because he told me he had an incurable disease. I didn't realize it was stupidity.
Roasted.
Totally. And then it's talent time. Girls do all the sorts of things you would expect. They're baton twirling, they're singing, balloon animal making. I don't remember that one.
There was one girl that did that. I thought it was funny.
That is funny. Gracie comes out in a dirndl and does glass music where she touches the edges of wine glasses that are filled with different amounts of water to hit different notes. She's actually very impressive at it. I don't think there's anything wrong with this talent if there's someone making balloon animals. Like, she's fine.
Oh, totally.
But they act like she's unhinged for this for the rest of the movie. And while she's playing, she sees a cowboy with a gun on his hip in the crowd, and he starts walking toward the stage, and Gracie jumps off the stage to tackle him. And it turns out that he was just lighting a cigarette. He wasn't pulling out his gun like she thought. And then she gets interviewed and said that she wanted to end America's dependence on tobacco, and he'll think twice before he lights up again.
I think she was like talking to the agents afterwards also. And she was like, but he had a gun. And they were like, this is Texas. Everyone has a gun. After that, Eric says they found DNA on the envelope of the latest citizen letter, and it belongs to a woman. So they're trying to think about who the new suspects could be. And then we see Miss Morningside have a stern talk with Gracie, where Miss Morningside says that she's been fighting for her whole life against people like Gracie, which she calls feminists, intellectuals, and ugly women, which just made me like roll my eyes.
Yeah.
And she says those people think that pageant girls are a bunch of airheads, but that she's not going to let Gracie get in her way. And so then that night, Gracie is just like in a horrible mood and is like pissed off from this conversation with Miss Morningside. And so when she's practicing with Victor, they have an argument, and then she ends up pointing a gun at him after he takes her donut away and fires him, which I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then after she leaves, Vic, under his breath, goes, how do you feel about gun control? Favorable. Which I thought was funny. And then she goes to the pool where Eric is swimming and finds him, and she quits. She says all she wants to do is her job, and she just felt really lost the last few days. But then he gives her a pep talk, and he talks about what he sees in her, and they have this actually really nice conversation, and she ultimately agrees to stay.
And then the next day is Bikini Day, the swimsuit competition. And Vic puts chicken cutlets in her top and hairsprays her butt so that her bathing suit won't ride up. And she freaks out. She's also freaking out because some of the other girls are allowed to wear one pieces. And she's like, why can't I wear one piece like them? And they're like, no, we really need to convince everyone that you are a pageant girl, so you have to wear the bikini. And then when Gracie gets called up on stage, she can't stop herself from laughing, full-on snort laughing, when all the guys in the audience are cheering for her. And it's really cute. And then it's time for them to answer questions. And when Gracie gets asked what society needs, instead of saying world peace, like everyone else, she says, harsher punishment for parole violators. And then everyone goes silent in the crowd. And then she goes, and world peace. And everyone claps. Apparently, Sandra Bullock tried really hard to get the swimsuit competition removed from the script. I can't remember exactly what she said. Something about her feeling like it wasn't relevant to like the theme of the movie and like the purpose of everything.
Yeah, I agree. That makes me sad they kept it. So then Eric tells Gracie that he thinks Cheryl might be the bad guy. This is Cheryl, Miss Rhode Island, her like bestie in the contest. And as they're saying that, Cheryl is answering her question on stage. And she gets asked what her perfect date is. And she says, April 25th, because it's not too hot and not too cold. All you need is a light jacket. Which I feel like is one of the more iconic lines from this movie.
Totally.
And Gracie agrees to have a girl talk with Cheryl to see if she can find anything out. But you can tell she does not buy that Cheryl has anything to do with this. And she says that she's going to take out her earpiece when she talks to her so that they can have actual girl time and she doesn't have to worry about them listening in.
I love how much she actually cares about Cheryl.
I know.
It's probably like one of her first real girlfriends, you know?
Definitely.
Gracie gets the girls to eat pizza and beer, and Gracie tells Cheryl, first step pizza, second step flaming batons. And then they all go to a club where they splatter neon paint on drums and it gets all over them. This is a really fun scene.
I know.
I've never seen anything like this.
I want to go to that bar.
Yeah. And then Cheryl gets drunk and tells Gracie about the time she committed a crime. She stole red underwear from a department store because her parents wouldn't let her have it. And she also tells Gracie about when her lit professor attacked her in college. And so Gracie offers to teach her self-defense. But when they get up, Cheryl falls over because she's so drunk, and Gracie takes care of her. But at this point, Gracie knows she's not the citizen. There's no way.
Mm-mm. And so while they're out that night, the girls also tell Gracie that Kathy Morningside was the runner-up in a pageant once, and the winner mysteriously got food poisoning. And they tell her that Stan told one of the girls that Kathy Morningside is also going to be fired by the network. So this gets Gracie's wheels turning about Miss Morningside. And as soon as Gracie gets back to the hotel, she tries to tell Eric about her new lead, but they shut her down and say they already caught the citizen in Nevada. So Gracie starts thinking that the pageant criminal is actually a citizen copycat, but none of the FBI agents that are there believe her. And the boss even asks Eric if there's any reason to suspect Kathy Morningside, and instead of backing Gracie up, he says, "No, sir." The boss tells Gracie that if she wants to stay, she has to turn in her badge and her gun and stay there as a private citizen.
And then we see Miss Morningside wearing a pageant crown in her office, and she's reenacting her acceptance as if she's gonna be Miss USA, and it's really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And she also has blackmail newspaper clippings on her desk. One of them says, "Bang, bang, everybody is dead. Killer, victims, it's for you." And I was like, oh, okay, so now we know.
Mm-hmm.
But then her assistant, Frank, played by Steve Monroe, comes in, and we find out that he's her son because he calls her mom. And he says, hey, this isn't going to work because the feds already caught the citizen. And so he and his mom will have no one to pin it on. And then Kathy Morningside admits to writing a bunch of other copycat letters that they can use instead. And she shows this big stack of blackmail that she has. So they're bad news. Now we know.
Now we know. Gracie was right. Vic tells Gracie that he has to leave because of the FBI, because if he stays, he won't get paid because he's contracted by them, but that he's proud of her and he imagines that if he ever had a daughter, she'd be something like Gracie. And then he says, which is perhaps why I've never reproduced.
He has great lines in this movie. He's so funny.
He does.
Then Gracie shows up flustered after missing dress rehearsal, and all the girls pitch in to help her get ready. And then it's finale night. The women all do this choreographed dance to One in a Million, and they're all dressed like Lady Liberty. It's iconic. I feel like I always remember this scene in all of their costumes, outfits. And then Gracie has actually learned the choreography, which we saw that she previously struggled to dance at all. And so this is huge for her.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kathy Morningside announces the top 10, and Gracie makes it in, and she trips. Of course.
This sort of surprised me that they allowed Gracie into the top 10 still, even though the FBI agents were all gone and they would have known that.
Wouldn't they try to manipulate it so that she wouldn't be in the top?
Right, so that she wouldn't be on stage.
Also, why did they even agree to have her there?
Exactly.
I'm confused.
I guess not to raise suspicion, but you let the FBI in. But I guess to not raise suspicion, so I don't know.
I think I would buy it more if we saw them doing stuff to throw the FBI off their tracks the whole time or something. But I don't know.
So all the FBI agents are packing up the jet, and Vic tells them that Frank, Kathy's assistant, is actually her son, and that Frank changed his name to cover his many indiscretions. And learning this, Eric is like, oh no. So even though we couldn't find anything on Kathy, there's all this stuff about her son that she works very closely with.
And then back at the pageant, Gracie gives Cheryl fire batons, which, again, she's always been too scared to use them, but she uses them and she does amazing. I'm actually shocked that you could use fire batons for the first time on stage and do that well.
Oh, I know. Those things freak me out. I went to Georgia Tech and we had a baton twirler on our dance team, our college dance team, and everyone called her Fire Girl. So whenever she would come out on the field, everyone would be like, fire girl, fire girl. It was really cute.
I mean, it is impressive.
Oh, yeah, that's very cool.
And then we also see Eric and Vic are back at the pageant, and Eric says they have to find Frank.
And Gracie, instead of doing her water glasses for her talent portion, she decides to teach the audience self-defense and use Eric as her prop guy to beat up, which is actually really funny. And then backstage, we see Kathy Morningside say there's something wrong with the crown. She's like talking to a random person that's working at the pageant and asks them to bring it to Frank to give it to the prop master to, quote, make it shine. So we know that this is actually, she's telling them to bring it to Frank so that Frank can put the bomb on the crown, but she passes it off like there's something wrong with the crown, so it needs to get looked at. And we end up seeing Frank go backstage and attach the bomb.
And then it's time for the evening gown portion of the contest, and Gracie makes it into the top 5 on her own, so we can see like she's really doing a good job. She gets the question, many people consider this contest anti-feminist. What would you say to them? And Vic gets super nervous at this question because obviously she was one of those people. And she says, I used to be one of them. And then she has this great, honest answer about how these women are all smart, terrific people who are trying to make a difference in the world. And Vic says, my God, I did it. But then she ruins it because she says, and if anyone tries to hurt one of my new friends, I would take them out. I would make them suffer so much that they'd wish they were never born. And if they ran, I would hunt them down. And she looks at Kathy Morningside while she says it, who looks very nervous. Rightfully so.
Yeah. And everyone in the audience is just like,
Okay.
Slow clapping. So then backstage, Gracie overhears that Frank supposedly took the crown to get polished. And she puts together now that the crown is what's going to be the issue. But then she gets quickly whisked on stage. And on stage, she's trying to motion about the crown to Eric.
As they're announcing the winners, Eric runs to find Frank, who's watching above the stage, but then a security guard tries to hold him back. There's also this part that I thought was funny. I think it's around here, where Miss New York calls out to her girlfriend, Tina, in the audience. And I found this out. Tina is actually played by Jennifer Garez, I'm not sure how you say it, who was the real Miss New York in 1994.
Oh, that's cute.
That's a really fun cameo.
Yeah, I love that. So we see that Gracie and Cheryl are the top 2, and Cheryl wins. And as soon as Cheryl's announced the winner, Gracie's immediately telling her not to take the crown, but Cheryl is just like so swept up in the moment, obviously, and not understanding what Gracie is saying. So after they try to whisk Gracie off the stage, she fights back through the girls to try to grab the crown, but everybody just thinks that she's jealous and like having a mental breakdown about not winning. But then just in time, Eric takes out Frank, who's like climbing up this like structure on the back of the stage, I'm pretty sure, and he has a remote to set the bomb off. And so Eric takes him out, but then after the remote falls, Kathy grabs it and she sets off the explosive. And thankfully, just in time, Gracie throws the crown to the back of the stage and it blows up.
It's very dark to think about this plan actually working.
Very, very dark.
And Cheryl getting blown up. Like, this would be such a tragedy. That's so sad and scary.
Also so graphic and horrible.
Yeah. On TV. No.
No.
Eric and Gracie drag Kathy outside to a cop car. And as Gracie is putting her into the car, Kathy calls it a beauty pageant. And Gracie says, it is not a beauty pageant. It's a scholarship program. Here's the moment that really solidifies that Gracie has changed, and I love it.
I know, me too. And then Eric asks her to go to dinner with him, and Gracie starts singing, You Think I'm Gorgeous again, that same song, and then they kiss. It's really cute.
You know, I don't hate it as much as he is toxic in this movie and is misogynistic and is a womanizer. I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. I think it's because Gracie knows that about him and just gives him shit for it and does the like singing thing to like make fun of him publicly. It's just funny. I just think she gives him a good run for his money.
Yeah, they work.
Mm-hmm. As they're leaving, Vic tells them that they have to come back inside for an emergency, but the emergency turns out to be a celebration for Gracie. It's like this like cute brunch, I think, and like all the women are there and everyone's dressed up. And at this celebration for Gracie, Cheryl awards her Miss Congeniality and gives her a trophy and a sash. And then Gracie gives this really nice speech where she says that she's honored, moved, and truly touched to be a part of this. And she starts crying at the end and she says, I really do want world peace. And all the girls run up and hug her, and that's the end.
So cute. What a satisfying ending.
I know. It all worked out.
I love this movie. It was so good to rewatch. Now there's a Miss Congeniality 2 that I feel like we've talked about before. It came out in 2005, but I've never seen it. You've seen it, right?
I don't think I have seen the sequel.
Maybe we'll have to do it.
Guys, this is like maybe a crack idea. Would you like it if we did a month of sequels?
Or would that be the worst idea ever? And everyone would be like me, and they'd be like, well, I haven't seen Legally Blonde 2. I haven't seen Miss Congeniality 2.
Probably. But have you? Tell me. Like, Legally Blonde 2, Miss Congeniality 2, Father of the Bride 2. I'm just putting it out there. You guys let us know, because we're definitely not going to do that unless it's something you're interested in.
But I think it would be interesting to see, like, are they flops? Are they good? Did we need the sequel? It'd be kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can find a way to wrap those into one episode.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Good idea.
Okay, we'll noodle on that.
Well, thank you so much for listening.
And if you liked today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a good review. And if you want, please follow us on social media at What We're Watching Pod. We love, 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 love talking to you guys over there. We love getting your movie requests for the pod and just like hearing what you guys think about different things, because I feel like you guys are so much like us and we love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. It really means everything to us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.